Hello and welcome to my Mira Grant reading vlog. In this vlog, I'll be reading a series of collectible horror short novellas and a couple other things of Mira Grant, aka Shauna Maguire, known for her Wayward Children series, the Middle Game series, among a lot of other stuff. But I wanted to focus particularly on her horror. Part of the reason that I was motivated to do this was that last year I realized I didn't read as much Mira Grant, or Shauna Maguire in particular, I should say, as I would have liked. And so I was motivated to sort of try reading more of her works. And I realized I had a growing stack of Mira Grant books. You might know Mira Grant for her murderous siren/mermaid story, Into the Drowning Deep, or perhaps the Rolling in the Deep prequel novella that she has, which is itself a collectible novella, a collectible horror that she had published by Subterranean Press. That is to say, they published maybe 1,500 to 2,000 of those. She signs all of them as Mira Grant, and then they sell for like $40, and then once they're gone, they're gone. This one in particular happens to be the most expensive. I think it's like $300 or $400 for the collectible at this point, which surprised I did not buy that. But when I realized she had a new book coming out, Square Cubed, I decided I was going to buy it. But that was when I realized that she seems to be releasing on occasion, every couple of years, a Subterranean Press special edition book that is again limited. Oh, this says 12,50, excuse me. 1,250, not 12,000. And of course, it is signed by her. That was when I thought to myself, I wonder if they're all as expensive, all the ones that are out of stock are as expensive as Rolling in the Deep. And that was when I realized that they're not. So let's do a quick haul. So this one I got directly from Subterranean Press. I bought this back in like January, so it might still be there if you check. Spoilers, I did really like this, but you can see me reading it in this vlog. The others I got Final Girls, which is another novella. This was a library edition. I got it for, I think, $50 in the US on like Amazon or maybe Thrift Books. And then I got In a Shadow of Spindrift House, which I don't think was a library edition, but again, it was used, special edition, collectible. And this one was again about $50. Then Kingdom of Needle and Bone was the hardest to find for a reasonable price, because in the States, the only one I could find was $100. I was like, I'm not going to pay that much, even for a Mira Grant / Shauna Maguire collectible. But then I looked on the Canada Amazon, and I found this library edition for about the same price, about $50. And I was like, yes, thank you. And so I went and I bought them. And that was when I had the idea of, I'm going to buy them, I should read them. So I had this nice little haul here of collectible editions, collectively worth at least $150 probably. That's not why I bought them. I bought them because I wanted to own some of her collectibles while they were still affordable, assuming they do go up in price. Who knows if they will or not. But I thought it would be fun to make a vlog of me trying to read all of these collectible novels, all these collectible horrors by Mira Grant. I mentioned having read her Rolling in the Deep and the other murderous mermaid book, but I also read Mira Grant's Alien Echo back in 2020, and this was her YA take on horror, not novella, not collectible. I didn't love the YA side, but I loved the horror, the Alien franchise homages, and that'll be something I talk about in this vlog, as well as her other series, including Feed and perhaps other ones. We'll have to see. You'll have to watch to find out. So without further ado, these are the books that I'll be reading in this vlog. I had a lot of fun doing it. I hope you have a lot of fun watching it, and have fun. I should also add, I start this vlog at the beginning of March, right after I left my sister's house, so you'll hear me say I'm home. That's because I just left her house, traveled home, started reading on the travel home. So with that, let's get into it. I'm home. It was a long ride. I am very tired. I would like to nap a bit, but I do want to do a bit of unpacking. I also need to grade at some point today. But first, I have a great deal of bananas that are in need of freezing because I bought them before I left, and some of them are a bit riper than I normally would like. At least now I have a shit ton of bananas on reserve. I read the first chapter of Square Cubed, and I did like it a lot. I did not read more than that, even though I really should have. I was not in the headspace. I know I said it a lot, but I just wasn't. I tried getting rest last night, but 2 hours of sleep was not much rest. And while the one chapter I did read on the plane was really good, I never quite got to the point where I wanted to read it in the car. And the more I used my phone, the more of a headache I got from the motion sickness, which made it worse. It made it more likely that I didn't want to read. So I do want to read more of that today before the day is over. Okay, so we are approaching the end of the day. I have yet to do any grading, so it's going to be a late night for me. I haven't read any more of Square, Cubed. I really want to, and I'll try to before I go to sleep, but it's hard to sit down and read this when I know I need to grade. So what I end up doing instead, though, is procrastinating, making food, cleaning, or unpacking, and then listening to something else, which is why I managed to finish listening to the first book, which is The Kingdom of Needle and Bone. And this was Mira Grant's novella of 2019, literally the year before the pandemic started. And what is this about? It is about a measles outbreak, I believe, or a variant of that. It's a pandemic, and the need for a vaccine, inevitably the rise of something unique about this strain that makes vaccines harder to manage. And there's a particular solution being proposed that is itself very problematic. I guess you could say horrific, it's dystopian-esque, but the alternative still feels so much worse. And what I loved about this book was, first off, is that a lot of the things about the pandemic, especially early on in the book, feels akin to what's happening. This was written before the pandemic. This is a book that is not lazy in its writing. It is particularly uncannily accurate in its writing, as it so accurately is able to describe and predict how people will react in a pandemic type situation. And I think it's nearly perfect, to be honest. I think there's one thing that I have a problem with, which is the relationship between anti-choice people and people who push vaccines. And in this book, I think they're made to be one of the same, where it's logically assumed that if you're pro-life or anti-choice, you'll be anti-choice for vaccines and pro-life there. But I don't know if Mira Grant is giving them the benefit of the doubt or what her logic was there, because I don't think that's a reasonable assumption. Like, that assumes that there is an internalized consistency in the way they think. It also assumes that when they say they're pro-life, they actually are pro-life and not just pro-controlling women. That was one part here that wasn't major, and I'm not like shitting on the book because of that. I don't think it made the book any worse or better. I just thought it was an interesting, one of the few places where I think she didn't quite get it exactly right. But other than that, it was uncannily on point for what actually happens in the pandemic. I've now started 2 of her books with the thought of, thinking about them and the style which she uses for Mira Grant novella type horror stories. The structure of it feels akin to this at first, because we have this ground zero, or a series of ground zeros, and this point by which things evolve and things just escalate quickly. And it's not a pandemic, to be clear, but the approach how we approach the story feels similar. So, and the point that I'm trying to get at here is that in both of these, we're starting off with a main set of characters that we're beginning our focus with as a way to sort of introduce us to the problem that is arising and give us sort of a grounding to that story. Here it's following a doctor and her sisters and their sister's daughter. There's a series of things that are going on that were very intense. I just got back from visiting my little niece. Good girl. 10 points to Gryffindor. Good job. Yeah. And so reading this, I can't imagine what it's like being a parent. And if you're a parent, I'm not sure how you feel about reading this, but it's children are a big part of the story, is what I'm trying to say. And then it's even just as a new uncle, it got to me, I'm not gonna lie. But all in all, it was a solid book. I think I was approaching it thinking, I really like this, it's solid all around. 4 stars probably, and then we got to the ending, which I'm not going to spoil, but let's just say it fucks shit up, and all the best ways. So I think it really bumps up to a solid 4.5 stars. This is about everything I could have hoped, I think, from this vlog so far. That leaves me the next audiobook I'll be starting, not today, because I do want to pace myself, but try to make it one Mira Grant audiobook a day. But next I'll be starting this one, The Shadow of the Spitterant House, and I'll tell you more about it once I start it. I've decided to go beyond this initial idea for this vlog, which was to read these, collectible Mira Grant horror novellas, so as not to sort of restrict myself to my slow physical reading physically with my eyes reading pace. I want to go ahead and throw in Feed, the first of a series of zombie outbreak, not a novella, not a collectible either, so not quite the same thing, and I'm curious how they'll compare, given that it's not a novella, but also given, I guess, the fact that it's not a collectible. I'm curious like what her mindset is and how she creates this, like what makes a collectible versus this, and is there something distinct about her style between the two? Those are my thoughts so far. I really should start grading. So it's not been the best ride. As you can see, there's ice everywhere. Last year in March, like the beginning of March, I did my NetGalley vlog, and I actually was just rewatching it, and it was icy similar to what you see now, but it was more manageable. Like there weren't many patches of ice, and by the end of that 2-week vlog, mid-March, it was virtually all gone, all the ice. And I suspect within 2 weeks, although it's right now like almost the 3rd, I guess, of March, it'll be gone. But I still feel as though there's a bit more ice now than it was at this point last year, which is disappointing. But it should be almost gone. The problem is we're going down into the 20s the next few days, which is part of why I forced myself to come out here today, because I'm not sure there won't just be ice from the rain and snow and slush in the 22-degree weather, right? It's one thing to bike and come across mushy layers of ice versus a day where literally anything could be black ice. It's different, right? It's nice I got out here. I'm hoping to still make it further, even though I do have work I should be doing. And as far as the book, I have started the Spindrill House. I'm not quite sure the name of it. The one with the tentacles on the front. And I am enjoying it. It has some very solid Haunting of Hill House vibes. It starts off like describing this house, and it is very, very Haunting of Hill House-esque. I mean, at one point, Grant seriously says, I don't know the exact quote, but it was like something about the way the ghosts walk the halls of something house, and opening passages of Haunting of Hill House. This is exactly like this. That's one of my favorite intros of any book, is the opening of Haunting of Hill House, that first page, the first paragraph, about the ghosts that walk the halls. The tone of that opening passage in this book is very akin to that. So you get the impression it's going to be a supernatural work, but I thought Grant was a sci-fi writer. But once we get through the intro discussion of the house itself, we then pivot to this narrative of this young girl. She's like in high school or about to graduate, and they need money, so they're trying to investigate the house because no one else will go in, basically. They're trying to find the deed inside the house. And so she and her detective team, they just want to solve this mystery. They just want to make money. That's the gist of it. And the vibe going from that intro discussion to this feels different. Like the tone is more matter of fact than it is ominous, which I know seems like a weird juxtaposition to be able to be so frank about the darkness that's about to come about, versus just the way in which it's written, which I think is just interesting. How we get the intro that just feels like it's an homage to Haunting of Hill House, and now it's just like this is her story. She's making it her own type of writing style, which is very Grant-esque. I am loving that it's not quite the same as the other two books that I'm reading. Like it's not a zombie breakout or akin to a zombie breakout. It's something different, right? I'm gonna keep writing now, because it's supposed to start raining and or snowing in a couple hours, so catch you later. So I really should be heading back. It's after 3 now, I think, but I keep telling myself it's a little bit further. Of course, I have decided I'm not going to bike back. I mean, I am going to bike back, but I'm not going to bike back on this path. I'm going to go to the street, because those are clear. Obviously, the drivers, they have to be ice-free. As bikers, they don't mean shit. But I'm going to go a little bit further, because I see clearness, but if it gets icy again, I'll turn around.
Oh no!
Chapter 4? I thought I read one chapter. Dr. Black. Susan looked up from the table where she'd been recording her observations. He was new to her lab. While she recognized him, she couldn't, for the life of her, remember his name. That was fine. Based on what she'd seen so far, it wasn't as if he was going to be with them for long. Okay, so I come down with something, unfortunately. COVID test suggests it's not COVID. I'm gonna wait a couple days and test again, and hopefully it'll go away. The only symptom I have is a sore throat. My nose was a little stuffed this morning, but no headache, no fever, and I don't know what could be causing it, but it sucks, because now I had to not go to class today. Supposed to TA, and I didn't. At least I can work from home. Or at least normally I could. The internet is down here for some reason. It's been persistently failing for some reason. I can't figure out why. In any case, I have done some reading. I mentioned grading, which I still have a lot of grading to do, but it's not as extreme as I thought, which means I'm not as stressed about working. Hopefully, really, really hopefully, nothing worse comes about. I mean, I am triple vaxxed, so I'm not that concerned, but there's a point of pride, right? You take so many precautions. I want it to work out. Ultimately, though, one precaution I do not take is choosing not to see my family, who are a big risk point. If you're watching this, I mean, you're all the ones who go about your life without a mask. You might be vaxxed, but you're also in a hot spot. And so that is what it is, right? You have to make a choice, and ultimately that's the decision I make. That doesn't mean I don't have a line. Like I said, my family's vaccinated. I think they should be masked, be protecting everyone, including themselves. Ultimately, they are vaccinated. Family members who aren't vaccinated, I haven't seen in years at this point because they're not vaxxed. Other than that, it's just, it's no good decision. I can judge people for their actions, but ultimately, they're adults. They can make their own choices, as can I. But as far as reading goes, I still haven't finished Spindrift House. I am really liking it. I don't want to talk too much about it before it's over because I'm so close to the ending. I'm pretty sure I have 20 minutes at most left. I just haven't gotten around to listening to it. But I did listen to more of this Square Cubed. Not listen, sorry, read. Still really liking it. It's going in a direction that I'm not sure that it was alluded to in the description, but I'm definitely liking it. I can see some people not liking it for certain reasons I don't want to spoil. I feel like if you look at the genre, it might sort of spoil what I'm thinking, but I'm not going to get into the detail of what's arising. Let's just say that the physics of this world is getting fucked because of this rift that's happening, and it all seems to be linking back to these creatures that are coming through, and it's creating some really interesting dynamics, really exciting stuff. I'm really liking it. This has the potential to be a favorite of the year. Honestly, I'm going to have to reread this at some point because I'm realizing there are details that I'm not quite catching because it is a very well crafted sci-fi novel or novella where it's very pointed in how she's laying out what's happening. Kind of like the middle game, but this one's obviously much more compact. And I've had to flip back a few times just to make sure I understand. This concept of the rift, I thought they were rips in space-time that separated regions, but instead I'm pretty sure I'm still not sure it's entirely, but I think it might be more bubbles, regions of area that create a rift. Maybe the bubbles are so high that it just looks like a barrier. I was trying to understand. It's not just half the world. It's localized regions of the world that get trapped within this void. So I'm really liking it, and I'm excited to keep going. I'll definitely be finishing Spindrift, and I'll probably start the next book, which I guess at this point it'll probably be Feed, because that's the last audiobook I haven't listened to. In the meantime, I will try to get more reading done, but I really need a grade. I'm very procrastinative. Is that a word? Procrastinative at this point for some reason. But it has to be done. It really has to be done. Grading is one thing, but grading written paragraphs is another. It's like if you're playing a video game and you go from normal to extreme difficulty. Because it takes that persistent focus. It's another level than just, reading answers. So whether it be numbers or even just a sentence where I need some key words. Having to read their interpretation and then give them feedback on that. I'm acting like it's a huge thing and it's not. But it's a lot. When I have nearly 40 to grade, it's a lot. In any case, I'm gonna get back to work. Peace. Alright. I finished Spindrift House, The Shadow of Spindrift House. I should start by saying that I was 5 minutes away from finishing this, not 30. And I solidly liked this. It's not my favorite Mira Grant, but also not my least favorite. But it, again, just gives me everything I'm hoping from a Mira Grant book, which is a book that pulls from certain ideas, certain things within a trope, certain homages to a certain genre in horror, and so he uses that in a unique way, which I loved here. We have here what is essentially a haunted house, as I said before. But there's a bit of a twist here. The foundation in which that twist is rooted was revealed at the very end of the book. In fact, I had to listen to it twice and then Google that one key phrase to figure out what was going on. If you're a fan of the basis here, it might make more sense. And I also think that the cover gives some things away, but as far as what it is, I recommend reading it. I will say that if you read my review on Goodreads, I do mark the genres, which just would give away the big reveal at the end. But nevertheless, take that with warning if you choose to read that review. But I thought this was really good. Like I said, it started off with a solid reference to the Haunting of Hill House. I still stand by loving that. I love how it still made itself its own. And in the end, the direction it went was dark, but also very satisfying. I am quickly going through all the audiobooks I have, and we're on day 3, which makes sense. Next up, I'm going to be starting reading Feed, Book 1 of the Mira Grant Zombie Trilogy, or series, and I'm still reading another book which I haven't made any progress on since the last time we talked. So, this is a day. It's been a day. Like I didn't talk to you at all yesterday. Do I exist at all if I don't record moments of my existence to share with you? I will forever be asking myself that, because I won't ever get to truly remember it through your eyes. I'm overreacting. I am making some progress on this. I didn't read anything yesterday, which is why I didn't update you. And I haven't made that much progress. I'm a few hours into this pretty long book, and I must say, I'm a little disappointed. So far, I want to say it's my least favorite Mira Grant that I've read. And I hate saying that, especially so early in the book. I'm not going to DNF it. That said, I'm not sure how quickly I'll rush to pick up the other books in this series just yet. Unless the rest of you think the rest of the books are any particularly different or better. This is a series written in 2010, a book written in 2010, on a zombie apocalypse where it doesn't really follow the zombies, at least that's what people say in reviews. I'm kind of early into it, but we're following a presidential candidate through the eyes of the equivalent of the Gen Z in this future, which is, I don't know, 20, 30 years after the zombie apocalypse in, I guess, 2010, 2014, I'm not sure. Bloggers are now the big what's to do, because that's what was trusted, because when the zombie apocalypse broke out, it was the bloggers who told the truth. And I can kind of buy into that. The fact that it's a little bit of a stretch, I don't think it's trying to take itself seriously. It's a little campy in the premise, which isn't a bad thing, but it's the campiness overall that undercuts my enjoyment of this. I hate to say it, but it just doesn't feel as real as the rest of them. Like right now, I think we're supposed to be appreciating this presidential candidate, and it's supposed to believe that they're different. I'm not some kind of cynic who thinks politicians are fundamentally bad. I'm far from it. But nevertheless, the perfection of this candidate, it feels too artificial, and it sort of is just sort of encapsulating my feelings about the book as a whole, where as a whole it just doesn't feel real. It feels like a YA book, even though I'm not quite sure if it's intended to be a YA audience. I need to check. But like that's the thing, it's that feeling that I have associated with a lot of YA books, where they lose some realism as they sort of appeal to a YA audience. I'm still enjoying it, to be clear, but it is definitely a disappointment, and it's a low point when it comes to her other works. I haven't actually made progress. Another one I'm hoping to read some of it tonight. Currently grading. I finished the grading for one class, and now I'm working on this. I have a schedule, things to grade over the next 3 days, and if I can stick to my schedule and do it on time, I should be able to fit in more reading. What I hate that I can't do is I feel fine, despite the occasional thing in my throat. Even that feels like it's clearing up by the end of the day every day. It's always when I wake up. I can't go outside. It's beautiful. Like I guess I could, but I'd love to go biking. I think I said that it was too icy. I feel like it's probably melted more, and if I wasn't here isolating, I would do that. I tested 3 days in a row now, and I've been negative. I'm pretty confident I'm not. But I can't get a PCR test because it's Canada. So that's the fact is I just traveled, and legally speaking, I'm not supposed to leave if I show any symptoms whatsoever. I'm supposed to isolate for 10 days. That's the problem with the lack of testing in Canada. You have to assume the worst and go from that. I have every reason to believe it's probably just a cold that I have, because I was visiting my niece, and apparently my mother-in-law it keeps getting colds from her, so that makes sense. And none of them seem to be showing symptoms, but I hate not getting to know. It's Saturday. Saturday feels good. Even though I have to work, it feels like a good day.
out in the darkness, a fugitive running.
Mira, Mira, on the wall, who's the grantess of them all? That makes no sense. I'm really just making clips because I don't want to get back to work. Hello, my dearies. So where are we? It is Sunday. It is the Lord's Day. Hallowed be his name. I am 3/4 through the grading I need to do for the day. I will say that so far, like, some political stuff going on, and I have a feeling it could be going in a political direction, which I think could be intriguing. I still feel like it's a little too campy for my taste. I'm realizing that's the fundamental problem I have with this book. It's just that I'm just not loving the camp, which only I'm all for it. It's just not my style this time around. And as far as this, I have not made much progress. Honestly, I'm going even slower than I originally thought, and it sucks because I am liking it. It's just been so hard, and I'm hoping now I can just manage to give myself some time to read this, like right now. Even though I've been never-ending essays. I'm only 35 pages into this shit. And it's not that it's bad, I'm just very slow and so difficult with time. But let's do this, let's try to get through some of this. I would love to get to page 100 today, but that will take me a couple hours at least. Let's see, I'm going to give myself, it's almost 3:30 actually, give myself till 5 o'clock. Still have like a sore throat. Let's do this. Hour and a half. At most of reading, let's get into Square Cubes by Mira Grant. They did not, however, survive. So far, no seagull have been documented going more than a dozen or so yards past the line. Let me just read this to you. This is hilarious. The first of the artificial rifts had been opened in her lab, using her equipment in research. 3 graduate students had been sucked through, screaming, never to be seen again. It's just so casually stated, and it's just like the cost of doing science. It's not funny in a real world scenario, but in a book it's hilarious. We probably shouldn't be highlighting this book if it's a collectible, but I did. So, that's right, I finished Feed. I have a lot of complex feelings about this book. They definitely lean to good. I mean, it's generally a good takeaway from this book. But there's still that underlying feeling about the sort of tone of the story. I never quite get over that. This is a zombie novel written in the height of the zombie craze back in 2010. I saw a lot of negative reviews talking about how this is supposed to be a zombie book, but there's barely any zombies in it. I can see how in the moment people wanted that flashy content, but I think this book stands up the test of time because it's a genre that's been so overdone. We have a take on that genre back when the genre was still pretty fresh, that is still new and unique. In the end, I think this story is like a serious narrative, and it ends in a shocking way, but I think it's trying to take itself seriously. And despite my feelings of not everything feeling entirely genuine, I did feel very, very invested in the narrative, in our characters. And that, I think, says something about the quality of the book, even if it didn't work entirely for me. I don't know what rating I want to give this yet. It's either going to be 3 to 3.5 or 3.5 to 4. I am invested enough to finish the series. Actually, I want to see what happens next. I'm also curious. Like, this was over a decade ago now, and I'm curious to see how much of this was just a stylistic choice that just doesn't mesh with me versus a writer who hasn't spent as much time in the craft. But this is probably my least favorite Mira Grant that I've read so far. The whole scenario of having a blog that is mainstream news and the most relied upon, the most trusted, is like that very premise is intriguing. If we get in a situation where information is being suppressed or not getting spread, I mean, but then I can't think of it like in comparison to say the Alex Jones show or whatever, InfoWars on YouTube, and all these shows that exist that spread misinformation, and this idea of trusting random blogs. I see how it was rooted in the narrative. There's something about it that doesn't quite work for me, and it makes it a little uncomfortable, I suppose. Because I think at the end of the day, like the problem with the news agencies that prompted blogs being trusted, level of evidence required for a good news story, led to them not reporting fast enough on a zombie outbreak. I don't think it's necessarily a flaw of the news people not telling the truth so much as the system not being structured in a way that could work around it. But even then, it's like those kind of extraordinary claims were so hard to prove until like you're in the thick of it, really. So it's a complicated thing, I think. Despite those feelings and misgivings, like I said, I was still very invested in the political machinations. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Machination.
And the story and the plot around our main characters. And also just our main characters in general. I'm excited to continue on in the next series of the books, which I believe will move forward in the timeline, but also give us some peeks like further back in time. And on that note, I'm halfway through this, and I'm still solidly liking it. I'm still reading it. I'm going to continue reading it throughout the month. But this vlog is going to be on, I don't know if you say hiatus, but you might have already noticed it's been a couple days since our last update, and I haven't given you much B footage. So I'm going to stop doing an official vlog, but I'll update you as I read this when I finish it. But for now, this is not the end. I will update y'all when I've read more in a few days. Hello. It's melted a bit more. Finally out here biking. There's hardly any patches of ice left except for really big, thick ones, but even then, it doesn't take up the entire path. So it's March 10th. I'm out here biking. It's supposed to snow again tomorrow, the next couple days, and be below freezing, so even if it doesn't stick, there might be ice, so I'm not sure to get any in. So I figured I'd fit this in. But I'm hoping I can get to my special spot. It's a bit further away now. I live further away. To do a little reading before the sun goes down. I'm going to hurry up so I get at least 30 or 45 minutes in. I'm excited. This is my first time getting this far this year. It was at least December, maybe even November the last time I was able to make it out this far. It's been a long winter when it comes to biking, unfortunately.
Okay, it's several days later, maybe an entire week, maybe more. It's now March 17th. It's St. Patty's Day, and it's a wonderful day. It's like 70 degrees was the high. It's starting to dip down, but it's still probably going to be bikeable in a t-shirt. Well, I figured maybe today I'll try actually reading outside. Last time, I didn't read very long. Turns out sitting still in 30-degree weather, even with clothes on, you start to get super cold. And that was a mistake because I was super cold on the way back. I'm hoping it's not the same today, even though I'm dressed down. But I'm going to try and do a bit of reading. And I really want to bike, but there are a lot of people here because it's the first really nice day we've had. I said bike, I really want to swing, which I'm not going to show you because there are children on it. I like to come out here to swing and to relax in between, biking here and biking back. It used to be like a 45-hour bike ride. Now it's like a solid hour. Given how far away I live now, it's nice. I'm so glad I made it out here. This bike ride was like, I've been biking like 2 times before this now, I think maybe 3 times. But it still was not as great as today. Like, there's something about being able to bike in neutral weather, only as much clothes on as I need to be in public. It's something so pleasing about that. And not having to deal with the cold. It's the most joy I have felt in a long time. Okay, so I need to close out this vlog. I finished, bug, we're good. I finished all the books, including Square Cubes, right? Which I will review in a second. I should note it's mid-April. I did finish this in March. I just didn't get around to talking about it, so hopefully my mind isn't too empty on everything that I read. I've just been extremely busy with school. So overall, I'm going to give this 5 stars. It's not my favorite book ever, although I did really, really like it. I love the mix of horror and sci-fi and like the sort of the Lovecraftian side of it, but also the added sort of, I don't know if you call it fantasy, but it leans sort of fantasy, but it's really just really weird sci-fi. What is that quote? A civilization that's so far advanced that it's indistinguishable from magic. In some ways, that's what's going on here. And I love how the the explanation is just so wild that it's impossible to sort of counter this idea that we have this rip that opens into this area, this void, where reality is just fundamentally different than what we have here, which isn't honestly that far-fetched. I mean, theoretically, there could be a multiverse where every universe has its own sort of properties. The fact that it would mesh with human biology or biology at all in our universe in the way that it did, it feels like a stretch. But it's sci-fi. I'm willing to give it like a benefit of the doubt. I wish the horror was more scary. It's almost like there's sci-fi horror movies that aren't necessarily objectively scary, but then there are those that are scary. Like, even though it leans like Alien in its feel, I don't ever feel the horror that I felt in Alien. It's still good and it's still horror. It's just a different kind of horror that I'm not sure it's intended just to scare you. It is very, I don't know if fast-paced is the right word, but it's like very abridged. Like, she doesn't waste any time on the in-between parts. Like, we get through each section and we get big time jumps to understand what's going on. And I thought it was a really fun ride. I really want to reread it at some point, and I'm hoping it'll be released on audio for when I do that. I think it's a solid read. I think it's a lot of fun, and it's about everything I would have hoped for, given the premise. Square Cubed relates to, I remember it was quoted in here, basically something to do with like the laws of physics and some cube law in science, and how that doesn't seem to be applying anymore for some reason. But all in all, I really like this a lot. To review the others, let's see. I would say that's probably the best one, followed by, I feel like I gave this one a higher rating. But honestly, in retrospect, now that I'm like a month removed of this, I feel like this one was my next favorite. This one is obviously the longest of them, I think. The Shadow of Spindrift House felt very akin to Shirley Jackson, with a mix of, I think, Mexican Gothic. And it's basically a haunted house, and there are definitely some homages to Shirley Jackson in this. It's very apparent. It's very much loved and appreciated by me. And honestly, it's that homage that I really appreciate, even though it's distinctly different in its tone. So I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think it was a 4.5. It's about the same as this one here, where it's something people don't want to get vaccines, and there's this massive outbreak, which is ironic. This came out like not long before COVID. I think I've talked about this, but generally speaking, I liked it. Solid book. My least favorite was Feed, even though I did think it was a solid book. I think it was unique in its way of telling a zombie story. I think what got it to me was that I still don't love the YA tone, which was something I felt similar about Alien Echo by Mira Grant, which I think I liked more than this, more because it felt very alien. It really felt good with the horror. This one, because it sort of subverted the genre, even before the genre was really founded, I think. She sort of subverted it before it became overdone. Solid book, even if it wasn't my personal favorite, I think for more personal reasons. I think if you find that you're okay with a lot of YA tone books, I think you'll be fine with this one. I did not get to any more of her other books. Like I said earlier, I was just too busy wanting to read other books, which March was a good month for reading, and this was a lot of fun. I hate that I didn't get more biking in. Stupid trains. It's a short train. I hate to get more biking in, but it's the weather. Even now, like it's like 60 out here, and it's been so long since it's been 60. But overall, great vlog, great fun, and I'm hoping to get more vlogs in now that it's almost biking weather, like perfect biking weather. Thanks so much for watching. I guess I should do a conclusion here. It's not the end of a segment. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it if you made it to the end. If you did, why don't you give me a square, like a square shape, very basic emoji to show me you made it to the end, and let me know if you've read any of these or if you think you might check them out. Last I checked, Square Cubed is still available to be found for I think $40 USD collectible edition signed on subterraneanpress.com. The rest might be hard to find, but if you try, you might be able to find them for about the same as retail price. Again, thanks so much for watching. I can't stop talking. And have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Bye. I'll just give you a biking clip. How about that?